Hi, Year 11. These are your review notes for assignment 6. So you were asked to define the following terms. Firstly, the bladder. It's a muscular organ that's connected to the kidney via the ureter. Urine goes from the kidney to the bladder and it is stored in the bladder. It leaves the bladder via the urethra. Okay, but bladder, storage organ for urine. Bowman's capsule. The Bowman's capsule is a C-shaped part of the nephron into which blood is filtered into. So that's where the filtering of blood actually occurs. Okay, the cortex is the upper region of the kidney. Do not confuse it with the medulla. The glomerulus is a network of capillaries that blood enters, and that blood goes through, and it's where the blood basically is going to have the constitutes of it, the parts of it are going to go from the glomerulus and into the Bowman's capsule. But the glomerulus itself is its network of capillaries. It's the site at which substances in the blood will transfer into the Bowman's capsule. The loop of Henle is a site of reabsorption, so it's part of the convoluted tubules in the nephron, and it is the site at which water and salts are reabsorbed from the actual filtrate back into the blood. Okay, the medulla is the lower region of the kidney, not to be confused with the cortex. The renal artery is the blood vessel that supplies blood to the kidney. Urea is the metabolic waste that is found in a higher concentration in urine. It is not reabsorbed at the kidney. It remains filtered from the blood, stays in the filtrate, and makes part of the urine. The ureter is the tube that runs from the kidney to the bladder. The urethra is the tube that runs from the bladder to the outside of the body. Describe 3 functions of the kidney. 1. Osmoregulation, specifically controlling the amount of water in the blood. 2. Controlling blood pressure. 3. Controlling pH. 4. Controlling salt levels. Done. Okay. Explain what happens in the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule to the blood. The big idea here is that this is the site of ultrafiltration. Now that's a description, so it says explain that. So why? This happens because the blood is under a high pressure in the glomerulus, and that's going to force the constituents of the blood into the Bowman's capsule. That will include the urea, the protein, the amino acids, the water, glucose molecules. All of those things will be filtered under that high ultrafiltration into the convoluted tubules ahead of reabsorption. So notice I explained what was happening there. Simply saying what happens there is not enough. Okay, name 3 substances that pass from the blood into the proximal tubule. Okay, 3 substances: water, urea, amino acids. You could also include glucose, salts. You could have any of those. So lots of things that are going to go from the blood into the proximal convoluted tubule. Some substances in the blood never enter the proximal convoluted tubule. Well, never. Shouldn't. If you're healthy and everything's going according to plan, they never should. If they do, go see a doctor. But I'll name 2 of them, specifically red blood cells and protein molecules. Now, explain why they can't enter the tubule. They're too large. They're too large to pass through the filters in the glomerulus and to enter the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay. Explain as best as you can how glucose is reabsorbed in the loop of Henle. Okay, your big idea here is glucose is reabsorbed by a mechanism called active transport. This means that it is pumped back into it's actively transmitted and pumped back from the loop of Henle into the network of blood vessels that surround the loop of Henle. So that means that your body uses energy to reabsorb all of that glucose. It's also why the kidneys have such a high blood supply to them to allow them to do that. They need a lot of energy to be able to carry that out. Explain as best as you can how water is reabsorbed in the loop of Henle. Okay, water is reabsorbed remain by osmosis. Okay, the reason that that happens is that the concentration of water in the loop of Henle is greater than it is in the blood vessels surrounding the loop of Henle, the vasa recta. That means that the water will move passively from the loop of Henle to those blood vessels. So your big idea, the difference between those two things, glucose and water, glucose is actively transported, it's pumped back in. Whereas when we're talking about water, no, you get this passive reabsorption from there. Okay, it's called osmosis.